takes 20 minutes to blow a piece of glass, but most of the decisions are made in the last half a minute.
Chihuly is a man who really loves glass and creates it with incredible speed, as many as 30 original pieces in one day. In order to accomplish this, he works with teams of highly skilled assistants. Collaboration is an idea he has pioneered. 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a glass artist in America. Today, there are more than 2,500, and one of the reasons is master craftsman Dale Chihuly, artist, influential teacher, and co-founder of the Pilchuck Glass Center here in Stanwood, Washington. Well, I've often wondered where in that early period when glass was such a new medium, and even glass history was not very well known then, where you managed to get your ideas or your inspiration.
That always changes, of course, but one thing that doesn't change about it is that the material itself is so inspiring, and the heat and the gravity is a continual inspiration to new ideas. I mean, I'll usually have an idea, and I'll begin to work on a concept that's maybe intellectual or comes from something that I've seen or read, but then it's taken over to a large extent by the process itself.
You say that there are three aspects of working with glass that are particularly important to you, and they're gravity and timing and spontaneity. What do you mean by that, and how important is the spontaneous in the making of glass?
I think spontaneity is probably important to almost virtually every art form, but it's really apparent in working with glass because the decisions have to be made almost instantly. I mean, you come out with this, as you've seen from watching us, with this molten material that's constantly moving, and all the decisions have to be made, so it's very spontaneous in terms of approach, and it's very spontaneous in terms of a material.
See if you can get it to come up and get that thing coming out the side. Nice.
Touch down on the lip?
No, it's not going to touch. It's all right. It's beautiful. Lovely.
Let's go.
From the heat of the furnace to the delicacy of the final punty mark, we witness the drama and the magic of the glass-making process here at the Pilchuck School in Stanwood, Washington. Dale Chihuly, glassworker educator and the school's co-founder, is known throughout the world for the fluid grace of his glass forms, be they richly embellished cylinders or elegant forms contained within translucent bowls. Dale is as committed to passing on the techniques he has perfected as he is to inventing fresh meaning for this ancient craft. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.
I think I'm a perfectionist. I think I've always been, and for anything to go out of my shop that I didn't feel was right, well, I just wouldn't let it happen.
Maloof, a woodworker for 35 years, a man whose beautifully designed and executed furniture has rarely been matched for its classic form and finish. Sam is probably America's #1 craftsman in wood. He lives in this splendid, sprawling house behind me, which he designed and built, step by step, himself. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America. And one more thing. Sam Maloof has never had a day's formal training as a woodworker in his entire life. This house is really quite remarkable. Not only have you designed the buildings and the furniture, you've created very beautiful doors and latches. Is there any overall design or plan? Can you describe what you've done with the doors and the latches?
Well, I don't like hardware. I don't use it on my furniture. If you notice on my furniture, you don't see any hinges. You don't see any metal at all, and
because there is none.
Because there is none. I think the only hardware I use is in my piano or my wooden hinges, where I have a brass rod going through, but then they're tapped with ebony or rosewood.
What's the most difficult piece for you to make?
I think the chair is, but I've made so many of them that really I don't find it too difficult. But I think for most people, a chair would be the most difficult.
Why more than a desk or a table?
The joinery. There's an awful lot of joinery in a chair, and then too, a chair that doesn't sit well. It can be beautifully constructed, beautiful to look at, but if it doesn't sit well, then it isn't a good chair. In building a rocker, I start with the seat first. I usually, if I'm going to make 5 rockers, I cut all my wood out at one time. I put the back legs on first, and it's a rather simple joint that I use, but it looks difficult. Each rocker is different because, again, of the density of the wood, the way they balance. But when I get through, they all rock pretty much the same. But they all have their own characteristics, their own personalities, really. And no 2 rockers rock alike, even though they're all made the same. When I started, it wasn't, I never thought once about recognition, because I thought, what a wonderful way to be able to make a living working with your hands and making things that I would enjoy making. making and other people would enjoy having. A designer friend of mine asked me how I went about designing a chair, and I said, I don't know, I just start designing them. And I do. I really can't tell you. On every rocker that I make, they all rock differently because the wood in the seat may be much denser than the one before. The back may be a heavier piece of wood and all. But after I make the chair, I use the same rocker on all of them. I have a form that I laminate the wood on, and by moving the rocker back and forth and then just tapping it, and if it rocks perpetually, I don't know if that's a word to use or not, then it's fine.
Sam Maloof is the real thing, a master craftsman in every sense of the word. His work is determined less by style or fashion than by enduring ideas of beauty and substance. With his skilled hands and thoughtful vision, he's also managed to create a way of life that is equal to the honesty and practicality of his work in wood. I am Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.
I want my baskets to look like they were made in the 20th century. After a while, you really try to push that definition. You really want to find out what a basket is and what it isn't.
John McQueen, a walk in the woods is more than just exercise. For it is there, among the basswood and the pines, and the fields and the streams, that he gathers the natural materials as well as the inspiration for his craft. For many centuries and in many civilizations, baskets have been admired and collected as utilitarian objects as well as sculptural forms. But it was not until about 10 years ago that American artists sought to revitalize this so-called humble art. Here in Alfred, New York, naturalist, sculptor, craftsman John McQueen uses traditional techniques and materials to make distinctly contemporary baskets.
Well, I think a basket, by definition, has to be a container, because if it's closed off completely, it's not a basket, it's a piece of sculpture or it's a whatever. But so for it to be a basket, it has to be inside, outside, and so forth. The ones that are closed off always still have a place that you can get to.
How essential are natural materials to your idea of what a basket is?
You work towards a certain direction, of course, but it never happens that way. If you just think about natural materials, they're alive when you pick them, and then they dry, something happens to them. You re-wet them, something happens to them, and then you weave them together, something happens to them, and then it dries again. So it never comes out the way you see it.
you create are so carefully planned, they are so meticulous, but I wonder if that is a reflection of the work process itself.
I have a hard time with things that are loose, not what I feel is not quite got it together, fringe and things like that. But for the idea, it's usually a kind of conciseness. It's a container form in itself. It's a basket form in itself. The finishing of something, the beginning, middle, and end, which is a kind of closure, which is a kind of container.
John McQueen's baskets are more than beautiful containers. They are the work of an artist whose creative integrity is as evident and timeless as his superior craftsmanship. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.
Need only be concerned with making something beautiful. A craftsman must make it functional and beautiful. I take great ornate pride in calling myself a craftsman.
Thought of as precious heirlooms. Old quilts were long used to perform humble functions, to catch dripping oil beneath cars, to wrap around moist pipes, sometimes to protect furniture during moving. In recent years, we've come to reassess quilts as fine and valuable art as well as craft, as collector's items, even as historical records. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America. Sandi Fox, who lives in Los Angeles, the maker of dazzling quilts, has an unusual combination of talents. Why did people make quilts in the first place? Was it for practical purposes only, or was it for aesthetic reasons as well?
It was for functional reasons. A quilt is, in fact, an object made to keep a body warm. The aesthetics came simply because women have always preferred to do beautiful needlework rather than needlework that says nothing about them other than that it is a piece of something to do.
Are there any quilts that are considered uniquely American?
The pieced quilt, to a large extent, is uniquely American in that the geometric repetition of a blocked pattern spread across a quilt truly is an innovation in terms of design that has been applied almost exclusively by American women.
What is your own method of designing and making a quilt? How do you begin?
I generally begin with the fabric or a suggestion to me of a particular pattern that fabric recommends itself to. I never teach a course in color or design, mainly because I want quilts that have a naivete or spontaneity that, to me, is a hallmark of the 19th century quilt. I literally begin by cutting out squares, rectangles, whatever are contained in that geometric pattern. I cut out the fabric, I sew one block together, and if that works, I sew other blocks together. Sometimes I will work only with a large area, almost a central medallion, which is really a form of an 18th century quilt. Once the central area is done, I begin sewing on a variety, generally, sometimes more or less intricate, of the bordering. When I decide that's done, I put on an initial binding. I then put a back down, add a cotton back, put the top of the quilt done, stand back and give it a loving look, baste it, and then begin quilting. And quilting is really the most overlooked part of 20th century quilts. They look upon quilting as something that's simply going to get the whole thing together, when in fact the act of quilting, that linear step of holding them together, is the frosting on the cake. It adds dimension to the quilts and a whole new linear line.
With needle and thread, Sandi Fox has translated fabric into a statement of our surroundings and society. Her finely crafted quilts, like those of her 19th century counterparts, add to our history. A history that, as a curator, she is trying to preserve and exhibit. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.
More interesting is how could I infuse this space, this cloth, this print, with as much richness as reality, tactile quality, a sense of expressing the material, the process that put it together, how it was connected. Is slow. I think one learns patience, and it's as close as I get to meditation, I guess, is the mechanical process of drawing yarns through heddles or pushing the shuttle through the webs and watching something grow in front of you.
Larsen's luxurious patterned and colored textiles look as if they are hand-woven. The fact is, these fabrics are designed by him and then machine-woven and eventually sold in 30 of his showrooms in as many countries throughout the world. Weaver, manufacturer, and collector, Jack Lenor Larsen is that rare individual whose life bridges art and commerce. His 30-year career as an innovator in textiles has taken him all over the world in search of fresh ideas and techniques. The result, designs that are both elegant and original, designs that enrich our private lives as well as our public spaces. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.
Design collections, not individual designs or colorings, but carpets and fabrics and silks and draperies that work together as a group. And I feel that our shoebox interiors today need the specialness of their seeming to grow out of components that were designed for that space and that person.
Is the beige decade over yet?
I think it's over as a thing, although I think naturals and neutral colors, well, particularly natural materials, natural wood and cane and wicker and basketry and all of those things that tend to be easy to maintain are very practical.
Well, what neutrals, if there are any, do you foresee taking the place of classic tones such as beige?
We're finding two things. One, that dyed neutrals, grays and cafe au laits and biscuits, are more practical and seem newer than simply undyed fiber. And we're enjoying, and so are our clients, some colors that are between neutral and color. Very grayed out roses and very soft celadon greens. What I'm most excited about at the moment, and I think could be a major trend, and that would be using complementary colors together. Greens with reds, almost the same value, and probably not Christmas colors, but very grayed greens with very off shades of red.
What is the newest news in fabric itself?
One of the things that's happening now is a very much broader use of silk, which seems surprising. But because of China's becoming a very active trading partner, silk is available and it's often inexpensive. It's less expensive now than at any time in man's history. It also
Why is that the case?
Because China needs to export a great deal of it. It's one of the few things we're terribly excited about from China in large quantity. And we're finding its thermal properties for keeping out summer heat and particularly winter cold are useful.
A pioneer in new uses for woven materials, Jack Lenor Larsen is an artist of discriminating taste, firm conviction, and experienced business judgment. He combines technical know-how with poetic insight to create and sustain his constantly evolving craft. I'm Barbara Lee Diamondstein for Handmade in America.